Trump. Happy New Year, Sean.
Happy New Year, Allison. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Great to see you. Okay, so we know that Mr. Trump wants to repeal and replace Obamacare. Beyond Obamacare, on day one, what specific regulation will he do away with?
Well, I think you're going to see a series of them, and that's to be announced. We're not going to get out ahead of ourselves, but he released a video right around Thanksgiving talking about the first 5 or 6 executive orders that he's going to issue. Some of them, withdrawing from TPP, renegotiating NAFTA and giving notice, instituting a lobbying ban that is very forward-thinking, that's saying that if you want to serve in a Trump administration, you need to serve this government, not yourself, and it's going to have a 5-year ban going forward, and it also has a lifetime ban on people who want to serve in this administration, then potentially lobby for a foreign government. There will be a lifetime ban on that. There will be a slew of other things that come. But I think part of this is that we'll have a rollout where we talk about the agenda and how each of those regulations, both ones that we're going to repeal and put in place, help grow jobs and economic growth.
Okay. Sean, let's talk about the alleged Russian hacking of the DNC. Mr. Trump says he knows things that other people don't. What will he be revealing to the American public on Tuesday or Wednesday?
Well, it's not a question of necessarily revealing. Remember, the president-elect is privy to a lot of classified information, intelligence reports. He gets briefed by his national security team on a daily basis. So as president-elect, he is privy to information that most people aren't, and he is able to understand what the intelligence is and draw conclusions from that. But one thing I think is missing from this discussion, Allison, is this report that everyone keeps talking about is not final. The current president of the United States hasn't seen a final report. The intelligence community is talking about wrapping it up later this week. So for anybody to be going out and talking about what's in the report, it's not final yet. And I think that the idea that we're jumping to conclusions before we have a final report is frankly irresponsible.
Yeah. I mean, I said alleged hacking, but I want to get back to my question. It's Mr. Trump who said he's going to reveal something. So what is it that he says that he knows things? We accept, obviously he knows things that we don't know. He is getting intel briefings. Is he going to reveal something from an intel briefing?
No. I mean, he's going to talk about his conclusions and where he thinks things stand. So he's not going to reveal anything that was privileged or shared with him classified. But I think he can share with people his conclusions of the report and his understanding of the situation, and make sure that people understand that there's a lot of questions out there, Allison. Number one, look at what happened in April of 2015. The Chinese stole millions of records on U.S. current and former employees, their most sensitive information that was contained in security clearance forms. And nothing happened with the White House, not a single statement. And now you have an instance where there was a political activity going on, and the question is the response of this administration, the sanctions put on, proportional with the activities that happened? And number two, is it a political response to Russia, or is it a diplomatic response? Because we haven't seen these kind of sanctions in peacetime in our history.
Sean, just to correct you, you say not a single statement was ever issued or made after the Chinese hacking. I have the statement right here in my hands. This is from September 2015. President Obama said, quote, "We are preparing a number of measures that will indicate to the Chinese that this is not just a matter of us being mildly upset, but it is something that we will put significant strains on the bilateral relationship if not resolved." He went on to say we are prepared to take countervailing actions in order to get their attention. So there were statements.
No, he did answer that. The activity occurred in April of 2015, and what you're saying is, what, 6 months later, he made comments about it when asked? That's very different than the activity that they're going through right now. The White House is being very, let me give you another piece of information. The President of the United States says in September, he, quote, told Vladimir Putin to, quote, knock it off. If he knew then that there was activity going on, why didn't they act? Was it because of a political reason that they thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and they thought, why address this now? It's only until Donald Trump won that they seem to want to react to Russia.
But Sean, I'm more interested. Hold on, Sean, because I'm more interested in what Mr. Trump is going to do than what we're not electing President Obama again. But you are representing Mr. Trump. So if Mr. Trump, if the conclusion is that in fact Russia and Vladimir Putin were behind the DNC hacks and tried to meddle in the U.S. election, what will Mr. Trump do about it?
He will meet with his team, take their recommendations, and make a conclusion based on that as to what a proportional response should and could be.
What does that look like?
How can you ask me what it looks like when we don't even have a final report?
Because you must be planning for that possibility.
No, the way that the idea that you should be talking about the conclusion or the actions that you're going to take on a conclusion that's not final yet is unbelievably irresponsible.
Wait
The
a minute,
report
Sean.
is not, no, hold on. The report's not final. He has not been briefed by the heads of the intelligence community yet, and you're asking me what his response should be.
He has
Think
not
about
been
that.
briefed
That-
by the heads of the intelligence community about whether or not they believe that Russia is behind the hacking.
No, they're coming in later this week to do that. And so the idea that you're asking me, and neither is the President of the United States, frankly, because the report isn't final. So
Yep.
the idea that you're asking anybody what their reaction should be to a non-final report is unbelievable.
Hold
I
on,
just don't
Sean.
get it. No, not hold on.
Sean.
The idea that we are asking people and making assumptions on a report that's not final is unbelievable.
Okay, so in other words, Lindsey Graham and Senator John McCain are also unbelievable and irresponsible since
They're not the
always,
ones who instituted the sanctions. It's the President of the United States
they're
that did
planning
it.
hearings about it. They believe these 17
Exactly. Hold on.
intelligence.
Oh, wait,
They've been
Stop.
briefed.
Hold on. Listen to what you just said. They're planning hearings. They are actually trying to get it right, listen to what's going on, get the intelligence, and then come to a conclusion.
Wait a minute.
That's actually
Sean,
the right way to go.
They have stated that they believe that Russia is behind this. That's why they're holding the hearings.
I understood. They believe something, then they're having a hearing to get more information, and then coming to a conclusion. That's what we believe should happen.
Yeah.
Understand all of the information, get all of it, get briefed, make sure the report is final, get the intelligence community to brief us on that,
Right.
and then come to a conclusion.
And you're not going to make any plan. You guys aren't even having conversations about the
I know this is frustrating for you that we're doing it in a logical way, but no, we are going to actually get all the information, get briefed properly, and then make a decision. We're not going to put the cart before the horse.
And then Mr. Trump's going to speak with his team and decide something.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you guys for coming. I know our first official press briefing is going to be on Monday, but I wanted to give you a few updates on the president's activities. But before I get to the news of the day, I think I'd like to discuss a little bit of the coverage of the past 24 hours. Yesterday, at a time when our nation and the world was watching the peaceful transition of power, and as the president said, the transition in the balance of power from Washington to the citizens of the United States, some members of the media were engaged in deliberately false reporting. For all the talk about the proper use of Twitter, two instances yesterday stand out. One was a particularly egregious example in which a reporter falsely tweeted out that the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. had been removed from the Oval Office. After it was pointed out that this was just plain wrong, the reporter casually reported and tweeted out and tried to claim that a Secret Service agent must have just been standing in front of it. This was irresponsible and reckless. Secondly, photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. This was the first time in our nation's history that floor coverings have been used to protect the grass in the mall. That had the effect of highlighting any areas where people were not standing, while in years past, the grass eliminated this visual. This was also the first time that fencing and magnetometers went as far back on the wall, preventing hundreds of thousands of people from being able to access the mall as quickly as they had in inaugurations past. Inaccurate numbers involving crowd size were also tweeted. No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. By the way, this applies to any attempts to try to count the number of protesters today in the same fashion. We do know a few things, so let's go through the facts. We know that from the platform where the president was sworn in to 4th Street holds about 250,000 people. From 4th Street to the media tent is about another 220,000. And from the media tent to the Washington Monument, another 250,000 people. All of this space was full when the president took the oath of office. We know that 420,000 people used the D.C. Metro public transit yesterday, which actually compares to 317,000 that used it for President Obama's last inaugural. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong. The president was also at the Central, as you know, the president was at the Central Intelligence Agency today and greeted by a raucous overflow crowd of some 400 plus CIA employees. There were over 1,000 requests to attend, prompting the president to note that he'll have to come back to greet the rest. The employees were ecstatic that he's the new commander-in-chief, and he delivered them a powerful and important message. He told them he has their back, and they were grateful for that. They gave him a 5-minute standing ovation at the end in a display of their patriotism and their enthusiasm for his presidency. I'd also note that it's a shame that the CIA didn't have a CIA director to be with him today when he visited, because the Democrats have chosen, Senate Democrats are stalling the nomination of Mike Pompeo and playing politics with national security. That's what you guys should be writing and covering. That this, instead of sowing division about tweets and false narratives. The president is committed to unifying our country, and that was the focus of his inaugural address. This kind of dishonesty in the media, the challenging that bringing about our nation together is making it more difficult. There's been a lot of talk in the media about the responsibility to hold Donald Trump accountable. And I'm here to tell you that it goes two ways. We're going to hold the press accountable as well. The American people deserve better, and as long as he serves as the messenger for this incredible movement, he will take his message directly to the American people, where his focus will always be. And with that, a few other updates from the day. The president had a constructive conversation with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada about strengthening the relationship between our two nations. They also discussed setting up additional meetings in the days to come, which we will follow up on. He also spoke to Prime Minister Peña Nieto of Mexico and talked about a visit on trade, immigration, and security that will occur on the 31st. The president will welcome his first foreign leader this Thursday, when the United Kingdom's Theresa May will come to Washington on Friday. On tomorrow, the president will oversee his assistants to the president being sworn in. He will then, the staff will then have an ethics briefing and be a briefing on the proper use and handling of classified information. Further updates as far as what he will do. Oh, and then in the evening, he will have a reception for law enforcement and first responders that helped support the inauguration. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I will see you on Monday.
Sean, Women's March.
How about the Obama
You can't say
Women's
no
March
one
bigger
has
than
numbers
Trump's
and then
inaugural?
say it was the largest audience ever.